I will call to order the Monday, November 2nd meeting of the Verona Planning Commission, and we will begin with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Manley,
Here.
Alderperson Linder,
Here.
Commissioner Getz,
Here.
Mayor Hokumer,
Here.
Commissioner Lytle, Commissioner Heinzen, and Commissioner Horsfall is absent and excused.
Thank you. We have a quorum, so we will proceed with the agenda. Included with your packet were the minutes from the October 5th meeting of the Planning Commission. What's your pleasure?
Move approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lytle. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of the approval of minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We have announcements next. Mr. Sayre, any announcements? Mr. Gunlock?
Yeah, I don't know, some of the people on the Plan Commission may already know, but I will be retiring in February. It's been approximately 25 years that I've been city engineer, and I'll be 67 in February and decided it's time. So, Theron Jacobson is in the audience this evening, and he is one of the people in our office who will be taking over for me. We have a number of people that'll fill in. So, that's my announcement. Thank you.
As I said at the council meeting, I really don't feel like saying thank you to that announcement. I know that there's very capable people out there, but Bob, you've done a tremendous job for the City of Verona for a long time, and we really, really appreciate the relationship that we have. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't feel like a vendor, city government relationship. It's you are an integral part of what we do in the City of Verona. So again, we greatly appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm not going to ask if there's more announcements because I don't want anybody else to retire. So we're losing our clerk this week as well. She accepted the clerk's position in the City of Appleton, so we wish her the best there as well. Okay, I would ask for a motion to open a public hearing on a conditional use permit to allow an outdoor storage land use to be located at 421 South Nymound Road and 408 Venture Court. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Getz. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. I would ask Mr. Sayre to provide the background, please.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to have outdoor storage at 421 South Nymound Road and 408 Venture Court. Xander Solutions is the applicant. They are in the process of purchasing both of these properties. The property is zoned urban industrial, and in that zoning district, outdoor storage land uses require a conditional use permit. Zoning ordinance requires a public hearing before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission then makes a recommendation to the Common Council. So any motion tonight would be a recommendation to the Council. And that's the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. At this point, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? And going my usual 3 times, anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Heinzen to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Getz. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are now on agenda item 5A, and as Mr. Sayre indicated, if we were to take action this evening, it would be a recommendation to the Common Council. Mr. Sayre, do you have anything in addition to add?
So there's 2 items on the agenda. We have the conditional use permit to allow for the outdoor storage land use. The second item is the site plan review and approval for the construction of a parking lot. For sake of ease, I'll combine both reports into one. The property at 421 Nymound Road is located right here as I circle it. It's located just to the kind of southeast of the bike trail. The property is vacant right now. It was formerly used for office space, and the backside also has some storage and warehousing as well. The second parcel on Venture Court is located in this area. Both of these parcels are owned by the same landowner. Zander Solutions is looking at purchasing both of the properties and relocating their business from the town of Middleton to the city of Verona. They would use the existing office building located on Nine Mound. The inside of the backside of that office building space, some of it would be converted for storage. The other area would be converted for shop space as well for maintenance of their other vehicles. As part of this as well, they'd be looking at constructing a parking lot off the backside. Currently, there are 40 parking spaces on the site. The proposed site plan would provide an additional 32 parking spaces. They would also have outdoor storage located in the corner here. Storage materials would include, they do waterproofing of foundations, so they would be typical construction materials of piping, styrofoam board, just your standard construction materials that you normally see around any type of construction site. So the process tonight is the conditional use permit for the outdoor storage and then the site plan approval for the parking lot. Parking itself, as I stated previously, there are 40 parking spaces on the property. The applicant would be adding 32 spaces to provide a total of 72 parking spaces. Zander Solutions has approximately 12 office employees and 35 field employees who work primarily in the field. The parking on the property is sufficient. There would be company work vehicles parked on the site at night. During the day, you'd have the company work vehicles and also the people's personal vehicles when they would park, jump in a truck, and go off to a job site. So it would be for both personal during the day, and then at night it would be those company work vehicles could be parked out there. One item to note is a photometric plan was not included in the submittal. If there is an approval tonight, that should be a condition of the approval to provide that photometric plan. Access is currently provided from Nine Mound Road. The applicant is proposing a second access point onto Venture Court. They give the site a little better access, especially for the industrial part and the truck, from a truck standpoint. Staff has no concerns with the access from Venture Court. Venture Court is a cul-de-sac road that has very low traffic volumes. The other users on Venture Court are industrial users, so there should be no conflicts with the access. The property is located within 500 feet of City Well number 2, so it is located within the City Wellhead Protection Area. The applicant, as part of the project, is proposing to have gas and diesel tanks on the property. Those tanks will be located approximately in this area. The city engineer has reviewed the location of that, and it is located in what's identified as a Zone B. Pretty much that in that location, the distance, staff has no concerns. It is close to 800 feet from the well itself. Furthermore, the applicant has indicated that the tanks would be double walled, so there'd be 2 walls in the tank. So if there were to be an accident or were to be a spill, it would provide additional protection to the city's well. So any approval tonight, staff recommends that we have a condition in place that would require those tanks to remain double walled in the future. Outdoor storage, as I said previously, the typical storage on the site would just be your typical construction type material. The applicant is proposing an 8-foot tall chain link fence. It would be constructed around the outdoor storage area in this area and then wrapped to the southeast along the parking area. It'd be 8 feet tall, chain link with plastic slats in it. That type of fence and material is consistent with other industrial properties in the area. Staff has no concerns with that. That will provide full screening of the site from Venture Court. Further along the bike trail, there's actually a large berm in that area. So I don't believe it's going to be visible at all from the bike trail with the vegetation, the berm, and the fencing. So staff has no concerns with the outdoor storage. Staff reviewed the conditional use permit per the ordinance and the findings of facts and finds that it does meet all the general and specific requirements with that. So staff does recommend the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council approval of the conditional use permit to allow outdoor storage at 421 South Nine Mound Road and 408 Venture Court with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall submit a photometric plan for review and approval by the Director of Planning Development. 2, the applicant shall prepare and submit detailed stormwater management and erosion control plans for approval by the city engineer. And 3, the gas and diesel tanks shall be double-walled tanks. And second, staff recommends the Plan Commission waive the initial review and approve the site plan to allow for the construction of a parking lot at 421 South Nine Mound and 408 Venture Court. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. The applicant is in the audience tonight, and so is the current property owner. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions you have too.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Questions or comments for either Mr. Sayre or for the applicant? Mr. Heinzen, please.
Thank you, Your Mayor. I guess I have a question for Adam. Are the tanks going to be up above ground or below ground?
Yes, that's a good question. They would be above ground tanks.
Other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Mr. Getz, please.
For Mr. Sayre also, is there a particular reason for the request to waive the initial review other than for expediency?
Mr. Sayre.
Expediency is probably the big one. Xander would like to close on this property pretty quick and move into the property this month. So I think that's the big reason is the weather, is the timing of the elements right now. I think ideally they'd like to get an asphalt down on the property. That's probably not realistic, but they at least need to get some gravel in there before everything freezes up here pretty tight. So it is a timing issue from a closing standpoint.
Thank you.
Mr. Getz.
One additional comment, follow-up to that. Some of you know that I'm not a big fan of waiving the initial review process. If we have that process, then we should be utilizing it. However, as I've done previously several months ago, I do have a comfort level in this particular project because it is not a brand new construction. It's going into an existing site and improving that site. So for that reason, I'm comfortable waiving the initial review.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. Any additional, Mr. Lytle, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple questions. For Adam, can you remind me if there's any notification required when we do these public hearings for conditional use permits for neighboring property owners?
Mr. Sayre, please.
Yes, there are. So we do publish a Class 2 notice in the newspaper, and then we also do mailings for the property impacted here. So in this case, we notified all property owners within 200 feet of the property on Nine Mound and on Venture Court.
Okay, so those, the two that would be adjacent to the parking lot would have received notice and would have had an opportunity to chime in this evening or previously?
Yes, and I did hear from the owner of this industrial building there, but I did not hear from the two houses there on the corner there.
Thank you. Then finally, the site plan shows the potential for a future building, and I know it's purely conceptual at this point, but future parking lot. Would that require just a site plan review, or if you would have multiple uses on that lot, say there would be a tenant or another building put up there, that we would have to do a additional review at the Plan Commission or council level?
It would just be a site plan review, and the reason for that is the existing property line is, I think it's approximately in this area. It kind of splits the parking lot. So since there would only be one building on one lot, it would just be a site plan review, assuming it meets the code requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lytle. Any additional questions or comments? If not, a motion would be in order. Mr. Linder?
Oh, it's just one more question. Where is the city well in relation to this?
Mr. Sayre?
City well is 800 feet kind of off the screen. Well, it's kind of down in this corner behind the houses, off of Factory Street. Factory Street is a private drive now, but if you went off of Main Street and took Factory Road, I think, or drive basically straight west, on the north side of that road, there's a little well house there. It's kind of in general behind these houses, just off the screen over here.
Okay. And Mr. Gunlock, no concerns with the tanks there?
Mr. Gunlock, please.
As long as they're double walled, we do not have a concern.
Okay. Is the double wall standard, or is that not necessarily standard?
There's double walled and there's single walled. And the distance from the well, if it's double walled, I believe the distance is 300 feet. If it's single walled, it's over 600 feet. So with a double wall, we don't have as long as they're gonna put in double-walled tanks, we do not have a concern with them being 800 feet away from the well.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments or potential motions? Mr. Linder?
Do you need the motion reread, or can I?
Well, there is a contingency, so
Yeah.
if you would, please.
Okay.
Jack.
Make a motion to recommend that the Common Council approve the conditional use permit to allow outdoor storage at 421 South Nine Mound Road and 408 Venture Court with the following conditions. A, the applicant shall submit a photometric plan for review and approval by the Director of Planning and Development. B, the applicant shall prepare and submit detailed stormwater management and erosion control plans for approval by the city engineer. C, the gas and diesel tanks shall be double-walled tanks.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Manley. We now have discussion on the motion. Any additional questions or comments on the motion? The motion is to approve with the, or recommend approval with the contingencies. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We are now on agenda item 5B, which is site plan review for that same site, and this would be a decision made or approval given by the Plan Commission. Mr. Linder, please.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to waive the initial review and approve the site plan to allow for the construction of a parking lot at 421 South Nine Mound Road and 408 Venture Court.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Getz. Any questions or comments on the action for the site plan review? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. So agenda item 5A, which was the conditional use permit, that will be on the Common Council agenda for next week, Monday. Thank you. We are now on agenda item number 6, which is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a group daycare center to be located at 524 West Verona Avenue. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? We have a motion by Mr. Heinzen. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Sayre, if you'd provide the background, please.
Thank you. The property at 524 West Verona Avenue is zoned suburban office. Daycare land uses are allowed in that zoning district with the issuance of a conditional use permit. The zoning ordinance requires a public hearing before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission then makes a recommendation to the Common Council.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? If you would, please. If you would, just please approach the podium, and there should be a sign-up sheet. But we'll also ask you if you would state your name and your address, please.
Sure. My name is Greg Karn from Arcade Architects, and I'm representing the potential building owner and daycare operator, Brenda Van Rossum. And obviously, there's no objections on our part. We're just here to answer questions, and I just wanted to let the Plan Commission know that she did, as of Friday, secure financing for the building.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
And you'd be available for questions if there are any.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on this agenda item? Anyone else that wishes to speak under the public hearing? Third and final time, anyone who wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Getz. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Linder. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Sayre, anything to add, please?
Thank you. As I said previously, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a daycare at 524 West Verona Avenue. The original use of this building when it was first constructed was the first UW Health Clinic in Verona. After the UW Clinic built their current facility on West Verona Avenue, they leased the building at 524 West Verona to a daycare until 1998, when the building was purchased and used as a vet clinic. From that point, it was used until, I think, mid-2010, 2009, and then closed down. The most recent request for this property was in 2011, when another daycare requested to use the property, and that the Plan Commission and Common Council approved the use of a daycare in 2011. But ultimately, it did not go forward, and the building has remained vacant since. The applicant here tonight is requesting to reopen the property as a daycare center that would use the existing building and provide child care services to approximately 61 children. The applicant is proposing internal remodeling to make the internal parts of the building function again. The applicant would be purchasing the property in the near future, then would complete the remodeling and then open for business. No major exterior improvements are planned at this time, and the center would operate from 6:30 in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. Parking on the property, the applicant is proposing to use the existing 20 parking spaces. The zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space per five students, plus 1 parking space for each employee on the largest shift. The site plan indicated 61 students with a maximum of 13 employees. Based upon that number, the parking does not meet the zoning ordinance requirements. This is something the Plan Commission should consider in their decision. But it should be noted the property was previously used as a daycare center, and also recently in 2011, under the same code we have today, the Plan Commission and Council did approve a daycare use for this property that had up to 100 children there. So staff does believe that the property does have sufficient parking on it due to time of day demands with daycare centers. Usually you have parents just picking up and dropping off. You don't have people parking long term except for the employees. So staff does have no concerns with the parking. Access to the site will remain unchanged from Todd Street, and staff has no concerns with that. The site plan itself, the applicant is not proposing any new significant landscaping. They are proposing a new dumpster on the property that would be screened by evergreens and low-growing evergreen shrubs. Staff has no concerns with that screening. They're proposing an outdoor play area along the east side of the property and also along this kind of south side here as well. The zoning ordinance does require a board-on-board fence along the residentially zoned property to the north, so along this northern part here, and also along this eastern part. That would have to be required to be board-on-board, 6 feet tall by code. The southern part here along Verona Avenue and also along the west side here, that could be more of a say decorative type fence that you typically find along Verona Avenue, more in your typical, actually outside City Hall here, there's decorative fence. So staff believes the fencing is appropriate. It does meet the zoning requirements, and we have no concerns with that. One condition of approval staff recommends is the fence material. It needs to be approved by me prior to the issuance of building permits, just making sure it's high quality and that it will fit well with the neighborhood. We did go through the findings of facts, the general and specific findings of facts for daycare centers, and find that it does meet the requirements of the ordinance, so staff has no concerns with that. So staff recommends the following Plan Commission action: that the Plan Commission recommend the Common Council approval of a group daycare center land use at 524 West Verona Avenue with the following conditions. 1, fencing along the north and east property lines shall be board-on-board privacy fencing to fully screen the outdoor play area from the adjacent residentially zoned properties. And 2, the Director of Planning Development shall approve all fencing materials prior to the issuance of building permits. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Are there any questions for city staff or the applicant? Are there any questions? Mr. Lytle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for being redundant about this, but as a public hearing type of proceeding with a conditional use permit, similar notifications went out for this hearing as well?
Yes, once again, for this one as well, we posted a Class 2 notice in the paper, and then we also notified all property owners within 200 feet of the parcel.
So that would include the houses to the north of the site?
It would include the houses to the north and the east up to 200 feet.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be painfully obvious about that.
Thank you for the question. Any additional questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Mr. Getz, please.
Not a question, just more of a comment for the applicant, and not even related to our specific approval or disapproval of the application. If you hadn't seen the current edition of the Verona Press and the article about Badger Bus in the school district and the unanticipated cost to area daycare facilities, you might want to check that out, and hope you a lot of success there.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments, or potential motions? If we were to take action, this is a recommendation to the Common Council. Mr. Linder, please.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented by Mr. Sayer.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Manley. And those conditions apply as they were read by Mr. Sayer. Questions or comments on the motion? Questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries, and likewise, that will be on the Common Council agenda for next week, Monday. Mr. Sayer, Mr. Burns, anything to add?
Nope.
Nothing to add? Then a motion to adjourn would be in order. We have a motion by Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Getz. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
That one right there?
Adam?
Well, she's moved it at least twice, right? Yeah. I mean, you guys were by the Figaro's or
Right, it's
area,
now
right?
that the dentist office.
Yeah, right,
And we've
yeah.
been at it